Hi all.
Hello.
Well, welcome to the Marco Polo. This car was built by the Pullman Company in 1927. Right now you're standing in the observation lounge. This is the lounge. This car was used by President Franklin Delano Roosevelt from 1933 to about 1939, from the time he was governor of New York to the time he was president of the United States. So this is the place that he and his dignitaries would sit, look out the back, be ready to go on their whistle stop. And the whistle stop was where they would go on that back platform, make speeches to people at different stations, and get to see the people in the country. Right here is FDR and Eleanor Roosevelt in December 3, 1933, leaving Warm Springs, Georgia, where the little White House was. This car would travel from Washington, D.C. down to the little White House in Warm Springs, Georgia, and probably went right past us right here in Duluth on their way down to Warm Springs.
I've heard. Oh, that's interesting.
Continue on this way.
This is beautiful.
As you can see, this is really interesting because they have a lot of bathrooms and a lot of compartments. This is compartment D. This is where the president's body man, Bill Simmons, would stay. He was always at the beck and call of the president. One of kind of interesting fact is that his body man looked a lot like FDR. So that when it's said that when the train would go by and you would see somebody out there that you thought was the president waving to you as you went by, it was probably the body man. This is the Marco Polo suite. This is where President Roosevelt would have slept. Please, you can go in, take a look, but please don't touch anything. This is a historic car, and we want to preserve it for future generations.
Yes, ma'am. Ooh.
Now, if you notice, there's a grab bar on the side because of President Roosevelt's paralytic disease. He had he was paralyzed from the waist down.
Yeah,
So he
we know.
needed to be lifted up and to assist himself out of bed. His body man, as you notice, this door goes straight through to his body man's
Oh, yeah.
room. That's because his body man was always there for him.
Ooh.
As we move down. Now this would have been the room for an administrative assistant, secretaries back then, for Eleanor Roosevelt when she was on board, or if not, for any other assistants that the president needed. The Roosevelt suite right here was for Eleanor Roosevelt when she was on board. If you notice, the configuration of the bed is way different than the one in the Marco Polo suite. Mrs. Roosevelt was very tall, and it would probably have been pretty uncomfortable for her.
I would guess.
For her to be in that configuration. Now, if you walk into here, this is
The dining room.
This is where the president would sit with many dignitaries that would come through. Madame Chiang Kai-shek, the First Lady of China, would have been here. Queen Wilhelmina, various captains of industry. When they weren't dining, the president could come in here, and he had his own writing desk. Also, this table would have kind of gone up and flattened, and then there would have been even more room. Because the president was confined to a wheelchair many times, it was not practical for him to go from this car to another car to dine, and hence they had their own dining room.
That's actually pretty interesting.
Now, notice how narrow the halls are? Well, his wheelchair was basically a chair on wheels.
All right.
Because it had to navigate these very, very narrow hallways.
It's been pretty difficult for him to go through.
It would have been very difficult, and hence why William Simons was here at all times,
Right.
and why they built that special chair for him to come in. So if we move on to the kitchen.
Yeah,
My dad's favorite place.
That's what is interesting for me.
If you notice, this is probably the most highly modified spot on the entire Marco Polo. At one time, this was for the porter and for the cook. And this would have been their quarters in here, right in here. They would have a little prep area right here, a wood stove, coal stove right there, and an ice box as opposed to a refrigerator where
Yeah,
they would
for
have
now,
taken
yeah.
Or no.
huge blocks of ice and putting them in there. And out there would have been coal for the coal fire stove and also an additional pantry. As you can see
Oh,
from,
can I see?
you can just take a look
Yeah,
at it,
yeah,
sure.
yeah. Oh,
Now, it's pretty amazing that they could do all that they had to do in such a very confined spot. If you take a look at
Very.
this is kind of the original configuration of it. That you see the pantry, the porter's area to live and
Oh,
do
wow.
anything that work, and then the kitchen area. So
Mm,
think of this mightily compressed.
mildly.
But Norfolk Southern used this car down in Washington D.C. to entertain dignitaries and lobbyists, and they needed a kitchen that fit the modern era and be able to have a caterer come in and use this to entertain guests. But we really want to thank Norfolk Southern for allowing us to have this car, to have it at the Southeastern Railway Museum, and to preserve history for the next generation.
That is true.
Norfolk Southern is going to move their corporate headquarters to Atlanta within the next year or so. So it was kind of a natural fit, especially since this car used to travel past here.
Whenever we go down to downtown Atlanta to go to the Botanical Gardens, we always pass by where it is right now. Like one of the buildings.
Yeah, and that's going to be their main headquarters. They're moving everybody up.
Basically, what else they're building downtown Atlanta? That's the rest of the corporation.
So if, unfortunately, this is the end of the line, we're gonna have to turn around and go back out.
yeah.
That's true.
Very interesting.
I want to thank you all so much for coming and visiting the museum and for getting.
Thank
You
you.
know what? We are here many times a year.
Oh, well, thank you for coming out.
Many times.
Anytime.
George,
You might want to think about a membership then if you're
George,
thinking
he
of
was smaller, so he was here every year on the camp. So
Well, normally you would not have gotten a chance to see this car if it was in Washington D.C.
oh yeah.
And
Oh,
so
yeah.
we're very proud to be able to let people get a taste of history.
Uh-huh.
True.
Morning. How's it going? All right.
One of this is laid up.
Thank you for the tour.
You're
Thank
welcome.
you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you guys.
Thank you.
Enjoy the rest of your visit.
We will. Thank you.